Everyone. Hey, welcome. This is Rick Hoffman, your host with the DW Nation, and we are here with our morning coffee break. It's a great way to start our day, especially water safety. Many of us are sitting home right now, not, doing anything. I think for some people, you guys are extremely busy. I know on two fronts. Obviously, you're in Florida, so you're outside. The weather is much nicer. Here, it's in the 50s, but it's pouring down rain. Everybody's kind of been cooped up inside. Weather's not the greatest in the month of March in Ohio, but we are living through an unprecedented time with this coronavirus, all this stuff in the news. I really hate to say that it's taken attention off of water safety, but it has. I mean, we were just talking about that. So we're seeing, I think our audience here is down. People aren't listening as much and viewing our content. You don't see as much. Dana, you were just saying, trying to search some incidences that happened in Broward County that the media is not even covering, these drowning accidents right now that normally they would be, right?
Yeah, it is pretty scary. And I think it's also just the timing. Again, we were just talking about the timing of all of this to happen. Not that there's a good time for any of this to happen, but the fact that it is getting warmer, at least here, and people are opening their pools up and getting into them, and now they're spending so much time at home, it just increases their risk of having something happen.
Right. Well, Dana, I want to start this off because you accepted my offer to send something to me. And when I got this in the mail, I got very choked up for two reasons. Number one, it's personal to me also. But number two is you sent me something that was very personal to you. And I want to show this to everybody here that's here. We've got some people jumping on here now, but I want to show this as we put a call out a couple weeks ago behind my green screen, which we get this all built up. Whether or not I'll use the green screen or not, I don't know, but maybe depending on what calls we're doing. But I'm putting together a bulletin board behind me, and if you have a loved one or somebody that you would like to put up on our bulletin board, I want to be able to have these conversations and tell these stories in a way that it's real. Okay. When we send a picture through the internet, email, it's still a real picture, but it doesn't have the same feel. I think you would probably agree. And this, I think, really hit home with me when you sent this to me. And this is a picture of you and your son. Hopefully that's showing up here on my green screen. I think it's showing up. Might be a little different, but with this here, it's this is a picture you took of you and your son right around a time frame. I think, if you correct me if I'm wrong, and you put it in a letter to me, and you really explained this. This is a picture that you had in your wallet that you've carried around ever since January of 2019, and
Yeah.
it's even jumped out of a plane with you from 13,000 feet. And you also talked about it's, a little bit about your son as far as, he was in a fatal drowning on January 19th. Tell us a little bit about that.
So that particular day, it was a Saturday, and all of my kids, I have two older daughters, they were 11 and 9 at the time, and my son, who was 2 months shy of his 3rd birthday. We were all home together, and my husband had left to go to work for a couple of hours, and the kids had been playing, and we were really just kind of talking about what our day was going to look like, and going to have breakfast soon, and there was a big debate over waffles or Mickey Mouse shaped pancakes. And just before all of the day was about to get started, the kids had been playing, and my oldest daughter and CJ had a very close relationship, and they were playing outside. I was watching them from the back door, and I had told my older daughter, I'm just going to run to the bathroom really quick, and then I'll be right back, and then we'll get breakfast going. Just keep an eye on your brother. And I was gone a few minutes, and when I came back, I noticed that both of my daughters were actually inside of the house, and the back door was still open, and I didn't hear CJ. So I asked where your brother is, and my oldest daughter said, I think he's still playing with his trucks outside. And I asked her to go get him. I said, he can't be out there by himself. So she went out, she came back in, she said maybe he came in and I just didn't see him. So I saw her walk into his bedroom, walk into hers, come back out, and she said I couldn't find him. And I feel like now looking back on it, that's intuitively where I just felt like there's something wrong, and I started to panic, and I said, we need to find your brother right now. And so the three of us walked outside into the backyard, and about 25 feet away from our back door, we have an above ground swimming pool. And the ladder and I remember that we spent hours trying to choose this ladder, trying to research what was going to be the safest, ladder. And it has like a slide that pulls down over the steps, so you can't climb up the steps when you're not supposed to be using it. We had the swimming pool for about 5 months, and honestly, CJ never paid any attention to it. When we weren't swimming in it, he didn't try to even investigate of what it was. So we walked outside and took a couple of steps, and I heard my youngest daughter say, CJ's truck is in the swimming pool. And so the three of us looked over, and that's when we saw him floating face down in the swimming pool. So I jumped in, I grabbed him, I had to hand him to my oldest daughter to get out of the water, and immediately started to do CPR. And EMS came. He was bay flighted to a Tampa area hospital, and unfortunately, he never did regain any consciousness. And so that really sent me on a mission in terms of really trying to just make sense of what happened to him and what happened to my life. And I started Googling and researching different water safety information, and I was just blown away by the amount of information that I didn't know and the statistics that I didn't know. And it's not that I just didn't know these things as a parent, which is important, but I also didn't know these things as a medical professional. I'm a nurse, and even though my field of nursing has been always mental health nursing, but I still went to nursing school and went through all the clinicals and everything, and that was never part of our education. And so I think that it really frustrated me that I just didn't have that information. Thankfully, I ended up sharing my story a couple months after, and I shared it on Facebook, and Krystal was one of the people that is locally here, and she's a swim instructor. She had reached out to me, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about her side of kind of meeting me, but I had a lot of support, and so we ended up getting together and forming this nonprofit, Swim for CJ, to be able to educate on water safety and drowning prevention in our area, and to be able to raise money for survival swim scholarships here in Hernando County.
Well, it never gets easy to tell these stories, and but we as parents, we know these stories are extremely important. They've got to be told, and we hope. I know for myself, I don't tell my story to try to scare people and say, hey, this, but the point here is we want them to understand that this can happen. I mean, just take a look at what's going on in the world today. I mean, this is going to change people's behavior on every how we interact with people. We need to also change people's behavior around water, to take the water safety just as serious, because it is just as deadly as anything else in this world. Krystal, tell us a little bit. I know you're sitting there with Dana. You've got Summer Swim. You've got a program. You teach little ones to get in the water and float, and we've been talking a lot about that. And hey, I want to commend your mug there. I saw you. All right, I like that mug. So it makes the coffee taste better, doesn't it? But hey, tell us a little bit about your program there at with what you're doing with Summer Swim. And before we went live here, really, you talked a little bit about a lot of programs are closing too and not getting in the water. And in your situation, it's a little different, I think, right?
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate, the big swim schools that are indoors and you've got a mass amount of parents watching the babies and that many kids in the water. I understand why those have shut down for maybe a couple of weeks or, until further notice. But I'm happy that at least, in my opinion, these outdoor ones that are just a single teacher, like I teach from my backyard pool, just by myself, maybe one other teacher at most, It's all ventilated. It's all open air. The pool guy, my pool guy, Magic Pool, he's got a background in chemistry, so he's like on my pool chlorine. And you posted so many things about if the chlorine is up to date and where it needs to be, then you should be good to go. So I feel like I'm blessed to have this job that could possibly bring a little sense of normalcy to these kids, and also doesn't halt what needs to be done, because at this point, drowning is still going to injure or kill more kids than this virus is, hands down. So it's nice to be able to know that I can still do this. And maybe, I don't know, if some other teachers wanted to pick up some lessons in their backyard where they normally go into a big indoor closed pool, maybe that's not a bad idea. So it's just food for thought. It's a great opportunity to still keep this message moving forward. Dana and I met after the unfortunate accident with CJ. She had posted her story. I immediately knew who she was because I was teaching at the time of the drowning, and her house is like less than 10 miles from my house. And I was really upset because I was on a wait list. I try and reach out to the other swim teachers in my area, so I knew both of them were on a wait list. And all of us are on wait lists, and this happened 10 miles from us. Like, I'm not doing something right. I felt it as a personal issue because I'm not helping with the village enough. So I was like, I got to get out of the pool and do something. So I organized this Water Safety Awareness Day. It was called April Fools last year, April Fool's Day. Last year it was in April. This year, luckily, we have it in May. So we're hoping it still goes on. But it brings the local water advocates or just local businesses that can in some way affect drowning together. We talk about life jacket safety. We had FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife, out there doing water safety demos for life jackets and talking about their role in it. I brought in other swim schools because I'm not about just saying, it's just my swim school. That's the only one that works. There's no competition. It's collaboration, in my opinion. So I had other swim school teachers, and we all got out there. So we did that, and then I went in and spoke to all the 3 schools. So even that's another thing. If you can't teach right now, go into the schools or go into, because there's daycares that are still open. You can still read a book to them. You just got to explore new ideas on what to do while we can't do what we're supposed to do. So I was going in at that time and talking to schools, and I'm doing it now as well. Whatever's open, whatever will still have us. And that's when I got Dana's story on Facebook, and we connected, and we've since then tried to develop more of a community feel for this situation.
Right, right. And Dana, you know, just so everybody knows, here's the letter that you sent me, you know, and along with the picture, and this really makes it very real when we can see this. And and I just want to let you know, reach out to me if somebody here is listening to this and you would like to have your photograph, send us a letter or card along with the picture also. But, you know, there's one thing here that you shared in this letter that you wish you knew more about layers of protection, because it's a very common theme when I talk with parents and families after they have, whether or not it's a fatal accident or a non-fatal accident, it's usually a common theme is, I didn't know. You know, there was a lot of things I didn't know. We thought we were doing what was right. You know, we only do what we know that we're supposed to be doing or what we think is right. And then there's this whole big, huge community out here that you find out, and Krystal comes to you, and then you find out there's people out there teaching something. Were you aware of, you know, infant swimming and the children being able to learn to float, you know, survival skills, as some call it? Were you aware of any of that?
Not to the extent at all. I mean, I knew that, you know, swimming lessons were out there. I didn't fully understand the extent of how important they are, to be honest with you. I had not even heard of a lot of the different things the techniques that are so important for our kids to be learning. But I also think that a big thing for me when I look back is that I never thought about water safety outside of non-swim times, which I truly believe that some of the issues, especially with the puddle jumpers and things like that we have now, is that parents, and I myself included was this parent, I thought I was doing the things that I needed to do to keep him safe when we were in the pool. And I didn't take into consideration about the fact that all of these drownings, almost 70% of them, are happening when we're not supposed to be swimming, or we're not even, thinking that that's going to come up. So I think that just the layers of protection for me are so important, because it takes into consideration that non-swim time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, in learning, in Krystal, learning to float and having that self-rescue and that ability that you teach little ones and children to swim, that's one of the layers of protection. And probably, some people might argue it's a first layer, it's a last layer. I don't know if there's any particular order that a layer of protection should be in, but I would say that if anything, it's probably an extremely important layer, because if your child gets through a gate, constructs. We all saw a video a few months ago where a child took, what was that, like a little toy car, and climbed up on the car and then released the self-latching gate. So him and his little sister, who's probably 18 months, walked into the pool. I mean, so layers of protection, if they happen to fail or a child gets through them, even if you have a door alarm, a child gets through, you still have to respond to the alarm. Child could still fall in the water. So this is an extremely important layer. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely agree too, because I think that, like I said, my case, I was gone for a couple of minutes, and if CJ would have had that skill to know once he made it into the water to flip over and float, that could have given me enough time to get to him, and it could be totally different for me now.
And it's just not in a situation where a child, or there's a lapse in supervision or something where a child just you're putting the milk away in the refrigerator, you turn around and your child's gone, and they crawl through a doggy door or something like that. I mean, my daughter drowned in a public pool 8 feet in front of a lifeguard. She was 3 years old. She was not seen, 200 plus people in the pool area. And if she would have had this ability to float, would have given her time to maybe somebody see what was going on or realize that she was missing, and then, would have found her. But she was estimated to be in the water for 8 to 10 minutes. And the whole time she was underwater. And by the time she was found, it was, the worst case, scenario has now taken place. But, layers of protection, just so if somebody's listening and watching, some of the important layers would be, obviously your fencing, not only your backyard fence, but you need that barrier fence between your home, your door, and your pool. If it's an above ground pool, remove the ladder, put the ladder someplace else. Remove all the toys, any floaties or anything from the pool. Yeah, Dana, did you want to say something?
The other thing about that, I just kind of want to speak to my experience and what, sorry. I just want to speak a little bit about kind of going back now after everything that I've experienced. So our above ground swimming pool, what I also didn't realize, and I don't know if just people out there think of this, but the pool pump and the pool filter are generally very close to the pool. They have to be. But if you don't have that extra fencing between the pool and the rest of your backyard, it is so easy to go out there now and to look at all of the things that could have potentially led to CJ getting into the pool. I'll never know how he actually made it in there, but I do think that the pool pump could have been a potential place to where he could have climbed on top of that and then made it into the water. The other thing, you made a really good point about just having toys close by. CJ, he had a tricycle that he would ride around in the yard. That could have been used. And the other thing too, that with the ladder, even though they make these ladders that, like I had, that have the safety feature that you pull down over the steps, which makes you feel like you don't need to remove the ladder. You definitely need to, because with a different lens, I have actually gone out there and I looked on the outside of the ladder, and on the outside where the steps kind of go into the side of the ladder, on the outside there's little holes, and I honestly think that his feet probably could have fit in there too.
Yeah. kids are resilient. I mean, we don't give them enough credit, and they can, if they want to get someplace, they can figure out. We have a foster children, and we were doing respite for, I think she was a 2-year-old, and we have these doggy gates, most or baby gates or what some people. We have a pretty good size one, and she was kept trying to get upstairs in the middle of the night. And so we put a doggy gate up in between the stairway in the hallway that goes upstairs. When we got up in the morning, we found a stool, a box, and she took the stool, put the box on top of the stool, and she climbed over the fence. I mean, in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. She was in a crib, and she got out of the crib. She constructed. She not only did this one night, but she did this several nights until we finally thought, okay, she's obviously, we got to figure something else out. So, and consequently, we did keep her from going back upstairs, but that's just an example. We had Brandon Love on our podcast that aired last Thursday. His son drowned in an above ground pool also. Got up before anybody else, him and his nephew or cousin, and opened a door. Somehow they were able to get up and reach and unlock the door, opened the door, and walked outside while everybody was still in bed because it was early in the morning. Walked over a neighbor's house, and no layers of protection, and somehow got in that above ground pool and drowned, but they had left the ladder in. So that's probably the obvious way that they got into the pool, and both children drowned. And so it happens much more than people really, know. Now, you two have really joined forces. Tell us a little bit about your guys' mission together and how you're working in your community, and to not only tell your story, Dana, with Swim for CJ, but also Krystal, to help with swim programs, getting more children involved. How are you guys accomplishing that?
One of my favorite things that we're doing actually came from an idea that you mentioned, that when somebody comes to register for swim lessons, again, it goes back to knowing that all of us end up on wait lists if we're a small school, and we don't have anything for them. We just kind of send them away, like, sorry, we're booked, whatever, we can't help you. We're trying to develop the videos or these little links that once you say, I'm sorry, I can't help you at this moment, but let me send you this link that's going to give you what you can do at home to start with water safety. So all that information they didn't have, because they might be a first-time parent and they think, oh, I just got to sign up for swim lessons. Oh, it didn't work out, I'll wait till next season. It reminds me of the importance of it. Don't stop trying. Call around, see if there's other swim lessons, how to barricade your own house, all the education you need to keep the barriers up, and all the different options. And then finally, the last video is going to go into rituals and routines for when they start to take their child into the pool, even if they're not in swim lessons. It still says get the swim lessons, but if you haven't gotten in, if your start day hasn't come up yet, if you haven't found a spot, when you get in the pool, this is how you treat the pool. You treat it like it's a road. You wouldn't have your kid run around the road, so you get in with your kid. Avoid puddle jumpers. Have them sit on the ledge and count to 25 before they get in, just out of routine. So this way, if they get out and they sit on that pool and they count to that 25, that gives them time to register. Well, my mom's still not in. So just teaching parents how you can almost, it sounds weird, but like manipulate the child's mind into thinking there's a whole routine I have to go through before I get in this water. And if it's not done right, then I don't get in. When they're younger, older, you can obviously say clearly, don't go in the water, you can't swim, that kind of thing. But even then, they should have some sort of habit. I'm getting you get in the water first. Just videos, still saying the importance of swim lessons, still promoting that, helping them to figure out what lessons work best. And all of this is done without like sway of methodology. I'm not on there saying, oh, my methodology is the best. I'm on there saying, get your child in swim lessons. See which ones you think are best. There's other options than the one you just called that's booked. So that's my favorite thing. And we like these videos to be shared. Again, I don't say my swim school's name. I don't say anything about me. We would like it if any teacher that wants to keep a client, I don't have anything right now, but here's some videos. You are in touch with that parent still. So when you do have an opening, they're going to go to you. They're going to think, oh, you helped me out, you gave me resources, even though you didn't have time. Yeah, I'll still use you. So you still, if they don't find anybody else, you still get to keep that client. Also, you're helping them to keep everything safe until they get in. So that's my favorite thing that we're working on right now. And then we're doing the safety swim day, which again, in May, but those are the two things that I'm kind of like really pumped about.
Right.
I just think overall, I think what I really like about us being able to connect in the way we do is being able to offer the different lenses, because as a parent, losing my child in this way, and even I feel like I kind of put my nursing hat on sometimes, and I kind of go off of that experience. I look at things sometimes differently than what Krystal does, and I don't have the same perspective that she has as a swim instructor. So we have a really open relationship to where we can kind of bounce ideas off of each other and really make different connections, I think, in the community. That's another thing that I really like about where Swim for CJ is going. I really want to be kind of that center hub for everybody in different agencies and organizations. A lot of people have initiatives in their organization that focus on something that has to do with water safety, but it's not their main focus. And so in a lot of these organizations with having multiple initiatives, it's, I think, something that is there, but it's not really present a lot of times. So what we offer to do is to be able to go into these organizations and agencies and kind of be that main force that's talking about water safety. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's focused on parents and me going and sharing part of my story with them and being able to teach about some of the drowning awareness things, or if it's focused on kids and being able to pull some of the water safety information that Krystal teaches along with the techniques. We can kind of tailor it to whoever's willing to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, right. And and you also sent this flyer to me too. This is a handout that you guys use there in your community, and it's got some safety tips in there and so this is a valuable piece of literature that you hand out. And I'm sure you probably, when people are coming in and maybe talking to you, Krystal, even and your classes are full, are you sending something like this home with them too?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Sending home with as much as we can.
Right. And something and it always makes me feel good when somebody says, "Hey, Rick, we took a little bit of your advice or a suggestion or whatever, and we've implemented it and we're making a difference," because I've really looked at my own situation and looked back to, it'll be 27 years in June when my daughter drowned. And I've tried to reverse engineer this and say, okay, when we wanted our daughter to have swim lessons and they said she wasn't old enough or whatever, what could they have done differently? And I think a lot of it would have been the education piece. What they could have shared as experts in the community. It's what they know,
Yeah.
okay, and what they're able to share with the parents coming in. So, that's an important tip that you have. If your classes are full, you have a captive audience. People are coming to you. And I think with everything that's going on in the world, we can, when something serious happens, we learn from what's going on. And that's what I've tried to do with my own situation, is learn from the action. In other words, look at this, reverse engineer, and say, okay, how can we do this differently? Because what is being said, I wasn't paying attention. Dana, what was being said was being said. You weren't really hearing it. Maybe it was going to, was being said. It's kind of like when you buy a car, you think you got the only car on the road. It's like white. And then you find out everybody has the same white car you do. It's because, all of a sudden you're more aware. So that awareness makes you more, I guess you hear and see that information more. And so when you're not aware of something, it's kind of like, you're going through life like the horses do, with the blinders on. You just are laser, just only see what's in front of you. And there's a reason why they do have the horses, because they want the horses to go where they see, not off onto, not go in a different direction. And water safety is it needs to be the same thing. We need to have laser focused on the problem and educate the people about, hey, here's the things that you can do until you get into swim lessons, until you can. So even if a person has a newborn baby and it's 6 months to a year before they're going to put their child, there's so many opportunities that we can educate them. And so if we start thinking about how we do our business and how we conduct our education differently, over and above what anybody else is doing, we begin to set ourselves up as leaders within a community. And then when those people become of age, now who are they going to pick up the phone to call? They're going to
Mhm.
call, Krystal with Summer Swim to learn to swim. They're going to call Dana to say, hey, we need additional information. We have a speaking engagement. We have opportunities here. We need to bring you in and talk to our group or organization about, preventive measures and what, can we learn from you? And I think that is where, going forward, and we look at the coronavirus and what's going on and how we're going to change our behaviors around that, we need to change our behaviors also on how we conduct the business. And I think, for the right people, this could be a great opportunity. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of swim instructors like you, Krystal, that are going to be out of business if this thing lasts more than a couple months, because
Mhm.
this is the time they're getting back in the pools. They need the income, they need the money. And then there's a lot of organizations, Dana, that are nonprofits that they're going to probably see their donations down. How are they
Yeah.
going to handle these things? Because I'm being inundated by Facebook, posts, people running fundraisers. And right now it's like, we're having to safeguard, what we do have, because we don't know how long, this may last, especially if you're out of work or you have no income until somebody comes to the rescue, I guess, if, so to speak. So as we begin to wrap up here, because I know, we've been on here for about 30 minutes. So do you guys have any tidbits of information? And then we do have some people on here with us. So if anybody has any questions as we begin to wrap up, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we'll make sure we answer those here while we're here. But Dana, first off, is there anything that you want to say to anybody at all, that you feel that maybe you haven't said yet?
Not specifically. I just, I appreciate the opportunity in coming on here and being able to connect with a lot of, especially the other parents that have lost a child to a drowning. I think that there's a very special bond. I think even with not being able to meet in person or even talking to every day on social media and things like that, there's this very special connection that I have with each and every one of you. Especially being water safety advocates, because I know for myself, so we just passed a year since CJ's accident, and there's a very fine balance, I think, from being a water safety advocate and knowing that this is the way that you lost your child, and balancing your grief, and trying to find kind of that, I don't know, just that balance to where it feels okay for you and depending on the day. And so I appreciate that there are other parents out there that are on the same mission, and that's very kind of raw and real.
Hmm. Right, right. No, you're absolutely right. When my daughter drowned 27, there was no internet. There was no Families United. There was no NDPA. There was no organizations. We were basically alone. When we did meet somebody, that lonely feeling kind of went away. But at the same time, the problem today is just as big today as far as drowning as it was in 1993. It hasn't changed. And, you know, that tells me as a business person, as somebody who looks at trends and looks at things, if it hasn't changed and we've been doing the same thing for 27 years, then that means what we're doing needs to change in order to change something. What those are, I don't know, but it's like you said, Krystal, you're doing something, you're connecting with people. Just these little subtle changes, just like, this coronavirus, we're changing behaviors. Will it work? They don't know. But if it makes a dent, then maybe we'll change. We'll implement this other thing. That's why every day you wake up and there's something different in the news. You're being asked to do something differently because it's a learning procedure, and we're trying to learn so we can make things better. Water safety needs to be the same thing. We need to learn from mistakes. We need to learn from others. And where do you learn? We learn from families like you and me, Dana, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think that one of the other challenges is, and I think that this could really help us, because even though there's a lot of us in this community, where I still feel like kind of an isolated community. And so I really think that one of the things I like to think about and to kind of stress over more or less is how can we get other people who aren't so deeply touched by a drowning accident, or in this community as a swim instructor or something that has to do with aquatics, how can we place the responsibility on them and the role on them to where they can take this information and they see how it applies to them and they can continue to pass it along? Because it really does, this responsibility can fall on pretty much any profession and any educational level, but how do we get them to see that?
Good point. Yeah, yeah. And right now it's going to be extra difficult to get them to see it because their attention is on something else right now. But when that attention comes off, we need to be at the right place at the right time. So we get that attention when they take their attention off what's, the current situation and want to go back to life the way it was, then we want to be in that position to, garner that attention. Krystal, what do you have to say if somebody's on the fence right now? And I know today, just so everybody knows, we have a podcast coming out today at noon. It is with Nicole Nooshog. She is a infant swim instructor from Tucson, Arizona area. She is a mother who started, and she started in a mommy and me classes and then realized that it wasn't doing what it needed to do. So she got her daughter involved in infant swim classes. And then she took that mission personally and became an instructor. So we've got that coming out today at noon. So that's going to be a great episode. But with that being said, that's my shameless plug here for that. But with that being said, that's kind of what you do. So if somebody's on the fence right now and they're worried about everything that's going on in the world, but they have a little one that they still need to get skilled, what would be your advice as an instructor? What would you say to them?
As an instructor, I would say do it. I mean, do it. Don't hesitate. Find the school. Always go do your due diligence and figure out which program works best. Like you said, she started with one and then switched to another. That's a real thing. So I guess my plea would be, to just stick with it, move forward with it. It's more important than dance or karate. Put this first. It's a couple of summers. You got to just tough it out, and you got to be in the water and do your side of it too. It's not all on the instructor. You got to practice at home and practice safety skills and do all of that. So just put in the 3 summers, 4 summers, put them in, do it, get it done, and then you can actually watch your child and enjoy your child in the pool instead of living with the anxiety anytime you're near or around water. Your anxiety feeds them. So you want to teach a healthy respect for the water, not an anxiety for the water. And you want to make this a generational thing. So the minute you take your kids to swim lessons, they put that into their genre of what they learn. They learn to ride a bike, they learn to rollerblade, and they learn to swim. So they're going to do it then with their child. So my goal is to make this a generational thing, no matter what race, what background, maybe whatever finances, there's scholarships out there. You need to make it a generational plug into their young life, that's what you do, and then they'll do that with their child. So that's my main thing with swim lessons. Get them in there, and they need to learn how to self-rescue. That's
Right.
the end goal of your program. If
Right.
the program you have takes a little while to get there, just make sure the end goal, the sooner, I won't harp on one methodology over another. I think we're all should come together. So
No, good point. Yeah, good point. And even with everything going on in this world, as parents, you need to be concerned with what's happening in the world today and take that into consideration, and then do your due diligence to make sure all precautions. And if you are going to attend swim classes, at this present time, then, you as a parent, you make that decision on what you think is best for you and your family. And that's really, and if you feel it's an unsafe situation, then don't, but don't stop the education. Don't stop talking water safety, because that's the fear right now. There's going to be more kids taking in pools and water and outside events, and because parents are just, so busy focused on, what's on the news right now, and they're not really paying attention to their children. And not only that, here it is, 4 days, and we're already seeing pictures of people having their kids tied up, and so they're living in a period of time they can't go to work to get away from them, and so now they may disconnect a little bit, and now the children could get outside, because backyard pools typically double with a backyard playground. And you might think your children in a playground, well, you're watching the news and the media, or maybe because you're working from home, you're on the computer. So I think there's a lot of things that we can still talk about with our people, and talk about to keep dishing out and getting good information. Everything from just, having the hand sanitizer and using the things responsibly, and being safe. And, because when a drowning happens, it just doesn't happen to the person that drowns. It happens to the family, the community, the first responders, just like, this coronavirus, it just doesn't happen to that person. Look, it's happening to all of us. Drowning is the same way. It affects all of us. There's so many correlations between the two. One's a virus. The other one, I guess you could say, is kind of like a virus, because, drowning, it affects everybody in some way, shape, or form. And there's a mental part of that too. So, hey guys, I really appreciate you both being here today. And I don't see any questions here from our gallery of attendees. So if you do have any questions, shoot them to us. I'll also make sure when we repost this up, we'll have both your guys' contact information and websites, Facebook pages, and links, so that way people can go and learn more about you guys, and also doing that. And Craig, thank you. Craig just wished me happy birthday, because today's my birthday.
I remembered that before we started, and then I forgot.
Oh, that's okay. And he also says thank you so much, Dana, and everything. So also, research on the air medical industry. Craig is he's a good friend of mine, and he jumped out of helicopters, into water, saving people on boats and in the boat racing community. And he is an EMT, and he's a water safety advocate. He speaks at all these events, and he's a walking encyclopedia. And if you know Bob Pratt, I'm sure most of you probably have heard of Bob. Him and Bob are really good friends, and so it's important to understand that when I think that's why he's chiming in, because when a drowning happens, it just doesn't happen to, say, Dana, you and me. It happens to people like him too, because they're the ones having to risk their lives to go in situations possibly to make rescues, and they can't save everybody, and that is personal to each one of them also. So I think it's important to note that just like you, Krystal, if one of a student, if you wouldn't take the time to educate that person, if you can't get them in, and then how would you feel if you heard one of them drown and you didn't take the time to at least get some information to maybe change that outcome? And so it wouldn't be a really good place to be in. I mean, you do what you can do, but understand you can't save everybody. So, hey guys, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. Stay safe down there. We'll follow up, and we'll stay on top of all this going on, and we'll maybe bring you back here when life gets back to a little bit normal. How's that?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All righty, guys. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Hey, bye. Yep. Get your coffee. All right. Hey, guys, really great. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here, and then we'll go ahead and jump off. But awesome job.